Welcome to our deep dive, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about biotechnology regulation,
Oh, yeah.
which is kind of a hot topic
It really is.
right now. And we've got a research paper, a journal article, and an editorial to unpack.
Okay.
And they all touch on the legal and social side of this whole biotech boom that's happening.
Yeah, it's pretty wild out there.
Yeah, it's think of this as your crash course on, well, all the exciting stuff, but also
The ethically thorny stuff that comes along with it.
Yeah, exactly. So before we get into like the rule book of biotech, maybe we should talk about like what everybody's so excited about.
Yeah.
Have you ever, I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but have you ever thought about programming a living cell like you would program a computer?
Oh, wow.
That's essentially
That's a good way to put it.
what we're talking about.
That's really what it is.
Yeah.
It's like we're taking engineering principles, right? And we're applying them to biology. And we're either building whole new biological systems,
Right.
or we're taking existing ones and redesigning them.
Right. Yeah. And our sources talk about two different approaches to this.
Yeah.
There's the top-down approach, which is sort of like,
Like taking an existing car.
yeah, it's like taking a car
You're souping it up.
and you're adding like a turbocharger to it.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not building a new car.
Right.
You're just making it
You're just modifying.
different or better, maybe.
Right.
And then the bottom-up approach is more like building a car
Scratch.
from scratch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you're starting with individual parts,
Right.
and you're putting them together to make something entirely new.
Yeah, that's way more complicated.
Way more complex.
Yeah.
But the potential there is huge.
Yeah.
You could be creating entirely new life forms.
Yeah. So let's talk about what all of this could actually do. This research paper that we looked at, it kind of paints this really wild picture
Yeah, it
of
does.
all these potential applications of this.
It really touches on every aspect of our lives. Like, you can think about medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine engineering cells to target and destroy cancer cells.
Wow.
Or producing drugs that are tailored to your specific genetic makeup.
So this isn't just like sci-fi anymore. This is like,
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, one great example is the production of artemisinin.
okay,
Do you know about that?
I don't.
That's a powerful anti-malarial drug,
Oh, wow.
and it's being produced using engineered yeast.
Oh, wow.
And this has had a huge impact, especially in developing countries, on making this life-saving drug more accessible.
That's incredible. So what about beyond healthcare? What else can we do with this stuff?
Well, think about the food industry.
Well, okay.
Imagine using engineered microbes to create new flavors.
Oh, wow.
Or enhance the nutritional value of our crops. We could even see crops engineered to thrive in harsher climates, which could help address food security issues.
So this is like potentially changing everything from like the medicine we take to the food that we eat.
I know, it's awful.
Surely there are some downsides to all of this tinkering.
Of course.
Where do we even begin to set boundaries?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question, right?
Yeah.
Synbio has like immense potential,
Mm-hmm.
but there are a ton of ethical and legal challenges.
Right.
And that's where things start to get really interesting. That's where the journal article that we read comes in.
Okay.
It really goes deep on all the thorny implications of Synbio.
So let's dive into the thorny stuff, though.
Okay.
You mentioned ethical challenges earlier.
Yeah.
What are some of the big ones that people are, worried about?
Well, informed consent is a big one.
Okay.
If we're talking about engineering human cells
Right.
or even creating entirely new life forms,
Mm-hmm.
how do we decide what's acceptable? How do we ensure that people really understand the risks and the benefits?
Right. Because even with something like genetic testing,
Exactly.
there's so many ethical considerations around like privacy and who has access to that information.
Exactly. And then there's the issue of equity and access.
Okay.
So will the benefits of Synbio be available to everyone, or will they only be for the wealthy?
Right.
Could we see a future where rich people can basically upgrade themselves
Not.
while the poor are left behind?
That sounds like it could create a whole new level of inequality. Like it's almost like a sci-fi dystopia, but it could actually happen.
It's a very real concern.
Are there any other major ethical things that we should be thinking about?
Oh, tons. Like, what about the impact on the environment of releasing these engineered organisms? Could we disrupt ecosystems or create these unforeseen consequences?
But that's a really good point. I mean, we've seen what can happen with invasive species,
Exactly.
even without intentional genetic engineering. So releasing something that's, specifically designed to thrive could really, have a huge ripple effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what about like the potential for synbio to be used for bad things?
Oh, of course. That's a big one.
Like, could someone engineer a deadly virus?
Yeah. Or create a bioweapon.
It seems like there's just so much to unpack here.
There is.
So how do we even start to address all these concerns?
Well, that's where the legal side of things comes in.
Okay.
Our sources really dive into this complex world of regulations and how we can create a framework to make sure that synbio is developed responsibly.
So it's not just about saying no to everything. It's about creating like a set of rules that allow for innovation, but also protect against the potential harms.
Exactly. It's about finding a balance,
Yeah.
fostering innovation while ensuring safety for both individuals and society.
Yeah.
It's a tough balance.
Yeah. So where do we even begin with that?
Well, we have to look at things like intellectual property rights.
Okay.
How do we protect these inventions that are coming out of synbio
Yeah.
while also making sure they benefit everyone?
It's a tough one. Yeah.
It is. It's a constant tension.
Yeah. It seems like every new technology brings up these questions about patents, new profits.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's the whole issue of biosafety and biosecurity.
Oh, right.
Like, how do we prevent accidents in labs?
Right.
How do we make sure that these engineered organisms don't escape and cause harm?
Yeah, these are all critical questions.
It seems like we need some really strict regulations in place,
Yeah.
especially if we're talking about, potentially dangerous organisms.
Absolutely. And then on top of all of that, we have to consider the social implications.
Right.
How will this affect our jobs,
Yeah.
our relationships, our understanding of what it means to be human? It's like synbio is forcing us to confront some really fundamental questions about like who we are and where we're going.
It really is. That's what makes this such a fascinating and important topic to discuss.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about technology here. We're talking about the future of humanity.
Wow.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it really is.
I know. It feels like we're on the verge of something huge here.
It really does, yeah.
But
Yeah.
before we get like too carried away with all the possibilities,
Right.
we need to talk about how to navigate this new world responsibly.
Right, because it's easy to get caught up in all the wow factor.
Right.
But we don't want to just charge ahead without
Thinking about the downsides.
thinking about what could go wrong.
Exactly. And that's where this editorial comes in.
Okay.
It talks about some specific approaches for governing these emerging technologies.
Okay, so it's like a roadmap for responsible innovation.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk roadmaps. What are some of the key principles or guidelines that they suggest?
Well, one that comes up a lot is the precautionary principle,
Okay.
which basically means being cautious,
Right.
taking preventative measures when we're dealing with technologies that have a lot of unknowns.
Makes sense.
It's like that old saying, look before you leap,
Right.
but applied to science.
Right. Yeah, we don't want to stifle innovation.
Right.
But we
Yeah.
also don't want to create like a Frankenstein situation
Exactly.
where things get out of control.
Exactly.
So, it's always that balance, right?
It is, and that's a big challenge.
Yeah, like how do we balance the potential benefits with the potential risks?
Right. And that's where things like technology assessment come into play.
Okay.
Have you heard of that?
I have, yeah, but maybe you could explain it for our listeners who haven't.
Yeah, so it basically involves evaluating the potential impacts of these technologies, both good and bad, before they're widely adopted.
Okay, so it's like doing a risk-benefit analysis, but on like a much bigger scale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just about identifying like the potential harms.
Right.
It's also about the bigger social and ethical implications.
So how will this technology affect our values,
Mm-hmm.
our relationships, our way of life?
All of that.
Yeah, so it's not just about the science itself.
Right.
It's about how it fits into the bigger picture.
Yeah,
of design.
exactly. And one way to explore those bigger questions is through something called scenario planning.
Okay, scenario planning.
Yeah, have you heard of that?
I haven't, actually.
Okay, so it's Basically creating these hypothetical scenarios to see how different choices and actions might play out.
Oh, interesting.
It's like choose your own adventure, but for biotechnology.
Okay, so you're kind of playing out different possible futures based on the choices we make.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and by exploring all those different possibilities, we can start to think about the potential consequences and identify strategies to navigate all this stuff responsibly.
Yeah, that sounds like a really valuable exercise, especially when we're talking about something as complicated as synbio.
It really is, and it all kind of points towards this bigger idea that's gaining a lot of traction.
Go.
It's called anticipatory technology ethics and governance.
Okay, break that down for me. What does that mean?
So it's about moving beyond just reactive approaches to governing technology.
Okay.
Instead of waiting for problems to happen and then scrambling to fix them.
Right.
It's about anticipating those challenges and coming up with solutions proactively.
So being prepared for the unknown.
Exactly. And it involves bringing a lot of different people to the table.
Okay.
Scientists, ethicists, policymakers, the public.
Right, everybody.
To create frameworks that are flexible and adaptable so they can evolve alongside the technology.
Because the technology is always changing, so our approach to governing it needs to change too.
Exactly. And it's not just about avoiding bad stuff.
Right.
It's also about using these technologies to create a better future.
Right, because technology itself isn't good or bad.
Right.
It's all about how we choose to use it.
Exactly. And that brings us back to, the human element of all this.
Right.
We have to remember that technology doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
It's shaped by us, by our choices, our values, the roles we set for ourselves.
So we're all responsible for shaping the future of this.
We are.
Not just the scientists.
Right.
Not just the policymakers.
Absolutely. We all have a role to play
in
making sure these technologies are used for good.
So that's kind of empowering.
It is.
And also a little daunting.
It is a big responsibility, but it's also an incredible opportunity to shape the future.
Right, to create a world where these technologies benefit everyone.
Exactly.
I like that perspective. So where do we even start?
Well, I think one of the most important things is to just be informed. That's why we're doing this deep dive.
Right.
The more you understand the science, the ethics, all the complexities, the better equipped you'll be to engage in meaningful conversations.
Right. Knowledge is power.
Exactly.
But it's not just about being a passive consumer of information.
Right. We need to actively engage.
Yeah.
Talk to people about this stuff. Your friends, your family.
Right.
Share what you're learning. Ask questions. Challenge assumptions.
So it's about creating this culture of awareness.
Yes.
And dialogue.
And don't be afraid to get involved.
Yeah.
Support organizations that are working to promote responsible innovation. You can contact your elected officials.
Okay.
Let them know you care about this stuff.
So using our voices.
Yes. We need to be proactive, not reactive.
Yeah.
We need to be engaged, not complacent.
Right.
The future is in our hands.
Okay. That's a lot to take in. But I have to say, I'm feeling a little more optimistic now.
Good.
It's not just doom and gloom. No.
It's about recognizing the potential, but also being mindful of the risks.
Exactly. And taking responsibility for shaping the future that we want.
Yeah. So if we go back to the beginning of our conversation.
Okay.
When we were talking about that Wild West analogy.
Yes. The Wild West of synbio.
Well, it seems like we're not just pioneers heading out into the unknown.
Right.
We're also the ones who get to draw the map.
I like that.
And create the rules for this new world.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, we're not just along for the ride.
We're holding the reins.
We're in the driver's seat.
We are.
And that's both exciting and terrifying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's also what makes this moment in history so important. We have this incredible opportunity to shape the future of biotechnology. And we need to make sure we do it right.
For the benefit of all.
Exactly.
Yeah, it feels like we're at this crossroads.
It really does.
Like we have this amazing technology that could solve so many problems.
But it's also kind of scary.
Yeah, two paths.
Yeah.
One good, one maybe not so good.
Right. So with all this, what can we actually do?
Well,
how do we make sure it's used for the right things?
I think a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah.
It feels huge, right?
Yeah.
But even small things help.
Okay.
Just being aware, being part of the conversation.
Okay, so that's a good starting point.
Yeah.
But what about real actions.
Sure.
What can I, like, actually do?
Well, you can support the groups working on this,
Okay.
the ones pushing for responsible innovation.
Oh, okay.
You know, making sure these therapies are available, setting ethical guidelines, making sure research is done safely.
Okay. So even if I'm not a scientist,
Right.
I can still, like, help those who are.
Exactly. And your voice matters too.
Okay.
Tell your representatives you care about this.
Oh, right.
Push for policies that make sense.
So they know it's not just some science thing.
Yeah, it affects everyone.
Okay.
And it's not just politicians either.
Right.
Talk to your friends, family, everyone.
So it's like a movement almost
It could be.
for responsible biotech.
Exactly. The more people who know,
Yeah.
the more we can encourage good choices.
And consumers have power too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
If a company's doing shady stuff,
Yeah,
don't buy their products.
that's a big one.
Yeah.
We vote with our wallets.
So even little choices matter.
Everything does.
Whoa, wow.
Every purchase sends a message.
It's not just about the future then.
Nope.
It's right now.
It is. We're deciding it now.
So as we wrap up, what's the main thing you want folks to remember?
I want them to remember SynBio's potential.
Yeah.
It can do great things.
Right, like we talked about.
But we have to be smart about it.
Mhm. Aware of the risks.
Exactly. Talk about them, take action.
And it's all of us, not just the experts.
That's right. We all decide this.
So we head back out there,
Yeah.
all this new knowledge.
Mm.
What's your, one piece of advice?
Stay curious, stay involved, and stay hopeful.
Oh, I like that.
We have a lot of work to do.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was great to be here.
It's been a wild ride, but
Yeah,
I think we can do this.
I think so too.
We can build a good future with this stuff.
We can. We just have to work together.
That's right. And thanks to all of you for listening.
Thanks, everyone.